Hey, by the way, just to let you know again, my love of punting. The NFL Network Research Group just sent out a stat, which I then retweeted. It's my favorite stat of all time.
I think I'm going to like it.
Since 1940, Tom Brady is the only player to throw more passing touchdowns, 50, than his punter had punts in the season, 44. And this year, with Mahomes and Breeze are both on pace to accomplish the feat this season, as Colquitt and Morstead are kicking back.
Those are two of the best in the game, too. You're talking about really talented punters. That Colquitt thing where he walks up to Mahomes and says, hey, thanks for letting me punt. It was nice getting back out there.
Yeah.
That's a hilarious line. Thomas Morstead as well. When I got there, Hunter Smith had a couple games where Peyton didn't let him punt.
Yeah.
I never experienced it. I had a couple with one. But it's one of those situations where as a punter, we like to pride ourselves on being the people you'd like to drink a beer with.
Yeah.
We're the people that after a win you'd like to celebrate with.
Yeah.
I think Dustin and Thomas are both very excited that they're just along for the ride watching some greatness with their team, which is what Mahomes and Breeze are doing this year.
Yeah, Morstead's had 2 games, including this past week, where he didn't punt a single punt in a game.
Great holds, though. People forget. Great holds down there. He's holding those balls for Mr. Lutz at an impressive fashion. All of his focus turning the laces to 6, from 6 to 12, and with a proper lean. Yeah, but you just want to win.
That's pressure, though. Holds.
Oh, I was so scared. I've never been more scared in my life. I lied to Bill Polian's face, told him I knew how to hold coming out of college. I did not. I had no idea. I had no idea how to do it. I had never done it. I kicked in college.
What do you mean you lied to Polian's face?
Mr. Polian, he asked me, I don't know if it was via phone or during a workout, something happened. He was like, you know how to hold if we were to draft you to punt, right? And nobody was looking for me to punt. So I was like, absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely know how to do that. And I had never done it in my entire life. So then I get drafted. Vinatieri knows that I was a kicker in college. He calls me the day after. He goes, have you ever held before? I'm like, Vinny, I got to tell you this. I lied right to Mr. Polian's. By that point, I'd already been drafted. So our first conversation was like a congratulations, and then he was very mad at me. And then he sent me to a holding camp in North Carolina with Ken Walter, the guy who held for him in New England. Yeah, I went to like a boot camp with Ken Walter. I stayed at his house. Yeah, it was a wild scene. But I was very nervous, yeah. First game in the NFL, I could give a damn about how those punt went. Whenever I walked out to hold for him, I had never been more nervous in my entire life. I had never been.
How'd you do?
I had one or two bad ones my entire career.
Attaboy. Well, it's that boot camp.
That's right.
It's that boot camp. They straighten you out.
Yeah, I had blisters on my fingers catching those balls. But Vinatieri would come to my room in training camp at night, and he would throw me like 500 balls a night. I would get thrown. Like it was very much like, hey, kid, I built up quite a little legacy here. I'm not going to let you come in here and ruin it because you lied to Bill Polian's face. I'm like, hey, I'm with you, dog. So we became really good friends over that. But yeah, it was an interesting conversation to begin with.
Your first ever game was a 14-12 win over Jacksonville.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's a lot of holding.
Two.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But I'll tell you what, those 2 holds, I might as well have been the Super Bowl game-winning kicks. I was scared out of my mind. I was getting texts from my friends like, hope you do well today. Don't ruin Vinny's career. I'm like, thanks. That means a lot. Because you can do that.
You guys started 14-0 that year.
That'll work.
Yeah, we didn't lose until we chose to.
That's, by the way, 1,000% what happened.
I know. Yeah, I was there.
Took a knee on the undefeated season, man.
Yeah. I was too young to have an opinion. But, boy, all the old heads in the locker room were not happy.
They were not happy about it.
No. Because the 72 Dolphins still get talked about. That was something like, if we can go get it, we should go get it. But then it's thinking ahead. We win that Super Bowl after resting that game. Everybody looks like a genius. We lose to Drew Brees. We've talked about this before. I don't think his kid now is stupid, but the baby celebrating after that was very dumb. So it's one of those things where it's the old heads, the OGs wanted to go for it. And I was too young to have a decision.
Again, I understand losing a Super Bowl leaves a mark that never goes away. But to blame it on a small child who's a beautiful child with headsets on.
Very beautiful kid. Drew Brees did a great job making a beautiful baby. And those babies were on ESPN last week. They were very smart. They were very, very intelligent. But the last image I saw before walking into the most miserable locker room I've ever been in my entire life, which was after that Super Bowl, I was so young. I was like, no big deal. We'll be back next year, guys. No big deal. We'll just come back next year. This isn't a big deal. That locker room was the most miserable place I've ever been in my entire life. And the last thing I saw before walking in there, a baby with the thing, and I was like, it's like Pavlov's dogs. I see that baby, miserable world. Yep.
There it is on screen right there.
Yep, and that was the last thing that was on the Jumbotron while we were walking into the locker room filled with misery. I think like Peyton left the country for like a month. It was like the most miserable place ever.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.